Before I tell you this, one small thing. If my stories keep you company, hit subscribe. That's how you tell me to keep going. I don't believe in coincidences. I believe in timing. The kind that dresses up as chance and hopes you won't notice the shoes. The rain began before I reached the station. Pavement turned to a sheet of blurred light. Strangers folded closer beneath the leaking beams. The loudspeaker apologized, reset, apologized again. A departure board flickered, updated, froze. I stood under a stubborn drip and tried to forgive bad coffee for being on time. That's when I noticed him. Tall, dark coat, a travel mug held in both hands like the last warm thing in a cold room. He looked at the board, then at me, as if I might have better news than electricity. "Northbound?" he asked. "Eventually," I said. When the train slid in, we stepped into the same carriage without arranging it. I took the window. He chose the seat across the aisle. Close enough to talk, far enough to pretend not to. Water stitched the glass. The car smelled like wet wool and patience. "You read the ending first," he said, nodding at the paperback in my hand. "Middle," I corrected. Endings don't like being rushed. "Patient with paper. What about people?" "That depends who's holding the pen." We passed warehouses softened by weather and fields that looked like they once promised more than they could keep. He glanced at my cup. "Station kiosk?" "Guilty." "You wanted to be early, so you missed being good." I laughed despite myself. His humor didn't feel like a trick. I decided to let it stay. We traded small things with long shadows. Worst hotels, kind strangers, streets that remember you. Harmless. Until he said my name. "Selene," he said, testing the sound like a key that might fit. I lowered my book. "Did you tell me that?" "Wind flipped your inside cover. Blue ink, clean handwriting." "Not magic. Observation." Still, I hadn't noticed. "Observation is a kind of magic," I said. "It makes things appear," he replied. Halfway through the ride, my phone buzzed. A message from Maya. "Text when you arrive. Spare key still under the log plant." He didn't look, but something about his mouth tightened. "You have someone waiting," he said. "A friend who thinks I forget doors." "Do you?" "Only the ones that look like exits." The conductor clipped our tickets with the calm authority of paper. The lights blinked once, then steadied. A suitcase began a slow, doomed slide, and he caught it with the kind of reflex shared equally by good people and liars. His station approached. He stood, sat, stood again, decided. From a slim wallet, he slid a plain card onto my table. A number, and a small drawing of a pier. He said, "Just in case." The doors opened to cool air. He leaned closer. Not close, just careful. "By the way, your friend chose that noisy plant on purpose. Keys hide easier inside things that make their own sound." "How would you know that?" He smiled. Not cruelly. Not kindly. Like someone who had been paying attention longer than today. He stepped out. The doors closed. The carriage exhaled. I stared at the card as if it might edit itself into an explanation. Not a name, not even initials. Just the pier, as if he were offering me a horizon. The train carried me to a town that smelled like wet stone and new bread. Maya's spare key was exactly where it always is, under the loud plant she once threatened to divorce. I told myself the key had nothing to do with him. The story disagreed. In the mirror above the sink, I caught the look I get when I'm pretending curiosity is caution. I made tea and didn't drink it. I put the card in a drawer and heard it stay in my thoughts. Outside, tires hissed on wet roads. Inside, the apartment learned the shape of a stranger who had already left. Sleep arrived, then reconsidered. I opened a book to the middle because endings don't like being rushed. When I finally closed my eyes, I could still see a pier sketched in pencil, pointing at a place I had never promised to go.
The train felt different after he left, like the air had been holding something, and now it had slipped out through the open doors. I stared at the card on my table, plain except for the number and the pier sketch, not a name, not even initials. I told myself it was harmless, just a random encounter, sharpened only by rain, timing, and the way he'd said my name without permission. Still, harmless things don't stay in your head this long. When I stepped off at my stop, the rain had thinned to a mist that clung to skin. The street smelled of wet asphalt and yesterday's coffee. I called Maya while walking past shuttered shops. "You made it? And the spare key?" I said, trying not to sound uneasy. She laughed, but said, "Why do you sound like you're confessing to a crime?" "Because someone on the train knew about it." That made her pause. "Excuse me?" I told her the whole thing. The plant, the card, the way he'd said it like it was nothing. "Selene, are you sure you didn't tell him?" "I'm sure." "Then he overheard me. Maybe I was on speaker." "You weren't." I could hear her frown through the line. "So what are you going to do?" "Probably nothing." "Right," she said, which in Maya language means wrong. That night, I unpacked the card and left it on the counter. Made tea, walked away, came back. The card didn't move, but somehow felt closer every time I glanced at it. The pier stitch seemed more deliberate now. Not just art, but a pointer, a reminder, or an invitation. By morning, I had decided to forget it. The day was for work. Meetings, drawings, numbers that behave better than people. I kept my phone face down, fewer chances for coincidence. Still, my thoughts circled back to the way he looked at me on the train, like he was reading a page I hadn't written yet. At lunch, I ducked into a quiet cafe with mismatched chairs and a chalkboard menu. The air hummed with a low conversation from the counter, the scrape of cutlery, the hiss of milk steaming. My laptop had just woken when the chair across from me scraped back. It was him. No coat, different mug, same eyes. "You left before I could say thank you." "For what?" "The conversation. People forget those are a kind of currency." He slid a new card across the table. "You left the other on the train." "I didn't." His smile didn't change. Memory's tricky. "You followed me." "I came here for coffee." "How did you know I'd be here?" "I didn't. Maybe I'm just lucky." Luck and coincidence are not the same. Neither are trust and truth. The rain outside had stopped, but the windows still held its memory. People passed by with wet umbrellas, the kind that drip long after you think they're dry. "What do you want, Alex?" Maybe just to see if the middle of the story is still better than the end. I packed my laptop slowly, making him wait for my answer. "You should stop knowing things about me." "Noted." That's not the same as promised. When I left, the card stayed on the table. I didn't look back to see if he picked it up, but I felt his eyes on me until the bell over the cafe door stopped ringing. That night, a message came from an unknown number. "You forgot the pier." I didn't reply. I told myself it was a coincidence. I didn't believe it. The next morning, the card from the cafe was on my kitchen counter. I hadn't brought it home. It lay there in the quiet, next to my keys, as if it had always belonged. And for the first time, I wondered whether this story had started long before the train.
The card on my counter looked harmless in daylight, edges slightly curled, the pier sketch softer than I remembered. I put it back in the drawer, locked the door, counted the lock once, habit masquerading as caution, and went to work. The day tried to be ordinary. Emails, meetings, small questions pretending to be big ones. But the drawer tugged at my thoughts like a loose thread. By 4, I wanted proof the story was still mine to steer. I took the long way home past the river. Early evening light, gold through dust, silver on water, seagulls argued with the wind, a cyclist apologized to no one for going too fast. I searched the pier on the card. 3 in walking distance, 1 too new, 1 leaning like a half-finished thought. The third, narrow, weathered, boards spaced so the water joined the conversation, looked like a place where a story waits. I texted Maya, taking a walk. If I go quiet, I'm just thinking loudly. She sent a thumbs up and a skull. At the end of the path, the pier greeted my shoes with a tired creak. A low wind salted my mouth. I walked halfway and leaned on the rail. The water kept its counsel. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. Left side, 1840. It was 1837. Left. Bench, coil of rope, a small chalk X on the rail. A friend waiting for you? A voice behind me. An older man in a red cap, a face that belonged to places. Maybe, I said, or maybe I'm really. He nodded at the chalk. They left that this afternoon. Same hand that asked me to hold this till the right girl showed up. He produced a thermos like a small magic trick. Said you'd know it's safe because it's too obvious to be dangerous. I shouldn't have taken it. I took it anyway. The metal was warmed by accident, not design. Guy with the eyes that don't stay put, the man added. He tipped like he wanted me to forget his face. I don't forget faces. You see a lot, I said. Seeing is free, he answered. What's in the cup? I loosened the lid. Cinnamon and citrus. A note floated up, folded small. I didn't drink. I took the paper with fingers pretending confidence. Don't worry about the card. I wanted you to have 2, the note read, in neat, shy handwriting. If you came to the pier, it means you trust your own questions. That's enough for now. I refolded it, heat rising for reasons I preferred not to examine. Is he trouble? The man asked. I'm still auditioning him, I said. Good. Piers like honest endings. Bodies of water don't. I stayed until 1841 because leaving early sends a message. No one appeared. The chalk X watched me not choose, which is also a choice. On the walk back, a child's kite paid the wind in bright currency. A dog insisted the path belonged to it. I told myself the thermos would stay closed. The note was the only thing I kept. At home, I set the thermos beside my keys. The apartment breathed as if it had been waiting to be asked a question. I texted Alex's number. If you put things in people's hands, sign them with your name. Then I washed 3 dishes that were already clean. Reply quick. Names come with expectations. I'd rather start with the place. Tomorrow, the bench by the fig tree, where the loud plant is. No, I wrote, somewhere neither of us already knows. Fair, he sent. You choose. Public, bright, boring. I chose a cafe near the museum that smelt like chalk dust and good decisions. Noon. If you're late, it ends there. I'm never late, he answered. You just tend to arrive too early. I stared at that too long. Texted Maya, lunch tomorrow, museum cafe. If I text a lemon emoji, call me. She sent 3 lemons and a knife. I slept with the phone face down and the thermos unopened. Somewhere in the night, cars braided themselves into noise and a siren practiced regret. Morning arranged itself neatly. I reached the cafe at 11:59 and pretended not to count minutes. At 11:58, the door opened and a woman stepped in. Not him, not Maya, a stranger in a coat from the train. Same fabric, wrong shoulders. She scanned the room, saw me, and moved with the certainty of someone following instructions. "She said you'd be early," she said, sliding into the seat across from me. "Who?" "She said the one who likes endings. She sent me to say he won't make it." My lemon emoji sat unsent. My tea tasted of metal. The stranger folded her hands like she was about to pray for patience. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. "Because he wanted you to wait, and she wants you to know you're already being watched." My phone buzzed. Unknown number. A photo of the cafe window taken from outside. My outline in the glass. I didn't turn around.
The woman didn't order anything. She just sat there, coat buttoned to the top, eyes steady in a way that felt like a hand on my shoulder from across the table. I tried to place her. Not the train, not the pier, not the cafe we were in, but the familiarity was there, like a word on the tip of the tongue that refuses to arrive. "You're quieter than I expected," she said. "And you're earlier than he was," I replied. A faint smile, more like an admission than a reaction. She glanced at the window, not the one behind me, but the side view, the angle from which someone could have taken the photo. I didn't turn. My tea cooled. "Did he tell you to say anything else?" I asked. "No," she said. "This is me." "And who exactly are you?" Her smile stayed. "Not important. I'm here to see if you stay." I let that hang between us, the way I let steam escape from a cup I'm not sure I want to drink from. She didn't blink much. People who don't blink either lie often or think they don't have to. "You should finish your tea," she said finally. "It's safer while it's warm." That earned her my full attention. Why safer? Because once it's cold, it's just water with memories. Her phone vibrated, a simple, short buzz. She didn't check it. Then mine did, seconds later. "Unknown number, you don't have to talk to her." I locked the screen without looking up. "Was that him?" she asked. "You tell me," I said. I don't have his number. And it sounded like the truth, which made it worse. The bell over the cafe door chimed. A couple entered, carrying the weather in with them. Her gaze shifted to them briefly, then back to me. "You should leave first." Why? Because leaving last means you were waiting for something. It was such a strange sentence that I actually considered it. But instead, I reached for my bag and stood. She stayed seated, eyes following me, not in suspicion, in confirmation. Outside, the street smelled of wet wool and exhaust. The photo's angle was obvious now. A narrow alley beside the cafe, shadowed despite daylight. I didn't step into it. I walked 3 blocks without checking behind me, then doubled back and took a side street. The habit of shaking a tail is older than I want to admit. At home, the thermos was gone from the table. The note from the pier sat in its place, unfolded. The words were the same, but beneath them, a new line in the same neat handwriting. "You stayed long enough." I touched the paper as if it might still be warm from someone's hands. My phone buzzed again. Same unknown number. "Tomorrow, noon, different bench." No location given. I typed, "Where?" The reply was instant, "Ask the woman." I didn't. Instead, I called Maya. "Can you send me a picture of someone and keep it?" "Keep it for what?" she asked. "Keep it for the file in my head where strange things go." "Send it," she said. I lifted my phone, but the seat across from mine in the cafe was already empty in my camera roll. No woman, no coat, just my teacup
still steaming. That night, I put the note in the drawer with the card, locked it, counted the lock once. It didn't make the apartment feel any less watched. When I finally lay down, headlights from the street traced slow shapes across my ceiling. One of them stopped, longer than it should have, then moved on. I woke to the sound of rain pretending to be footsteps, the kind of slow, irregular tapping that makes you believe someone is deciding whether to knock. The clock said 6:12. The street outside was empty, but the headlights from last night felt closer somehow, as if they'd stayed in the air. I made coffee without turning on the kitchen light. My reflection in the darkened window looked like someone else, someone still deciding if they wanted to live here. The drawer with the card and the note felt heavier than it should have. I didn't open it. By 9, the city had decided on gray. I took the long way to work, hoping movement would shake the feeling off. It didn't. Halfway there, a bus passed, its windows steamed. In one of them, just for a second, the outline of the woman from the cafe. Or maybe just the shape my mind wanted to see. I didn't get on. At my desk, I kept my phone face up for the first time in days. Nothing. No numbers I didn't know, no instructions, no peer. By noon, I almost believed it was over. I was wrong. The first message came as I left for lunch. Northgate, 12:15. The second followed immediately. Don't bring the thermos. I hadn't touched the thermos since it vanished. The note was still in the drawer. I stood at the curb, pretending to check traffic, and typed, "Why?" The reply was a photo, my own front door, taken in daylight, taken today. I didn't go to the North Gate. I went home. The door looked the same. The lock turned easily. Inside, everything was where it should be, except the drawer. It was open. The card, the note, both gone. On the table sat a single object. A matchbox from the blue-doored bar I'd passed with Alex. Inside, one match missing. Written inside the cover, "Tonight, 9:30. Bring no one." The rain outside had turned deliberate. I could feel the decision forming in my chest, the kind you know will follow you whether you make it or not. Maya called. "You sound like you're already halfway somewhere." "I might be," I admitted. She sighed. "Then tell me where." "I can't. Not yet." That's how people end up as stories other people tell. Her words stayed with me as I left the office early. The matchbox was in my pocket, too light to ignore. At 9:20, the street outside the blue-doored bar was slick and quiet. The door itself was closed, the sign unlit. I waited across the street, counting cars. None stopped. At 9:29, the door opened just enough for a shadow to slip out. Not Alex, not the woman, someone taller, wearing a cap pulled low. They walked past me, without looking at me, turned the corner, and didn't look back. I crossed the street. The door to the bar was ajar now, just a hand's width. Music leaked through. Old jazz, warm and slightly distorted. The bar was empty, except for a glass at the far end, half full, a small folded card leaning against it. I walked to it, feeling the floorboards announce each step. The card was blank on the outside. Inside, in the same neat handwriting, "Next time, choose faster." The glass wasn't mine. I didn't touch it. When I turned to leave, the door was closed. I hadn't heard it shut. I reached for the handle. It didn't move. Behind me, a voice I knew too well. "Alex, you came anyway." The air in the bar thickened as soon as he spoke. Alex stayed where he was, leaning against the far end, one elbow on the counter, as if the wood belonged to him. The lamp above his head threw a slow-turning shadow across his face, letting me see only parts at a time. "You locked the door," I said. His eyes lifted, lazy but sharp. "You noticed." My hand was still on the handle. It didn't move. "Is this supposed to be clever?" "No, it's supposed to be safer." "For who?" I asked. For both of us. He gestured at the stool next to him. Sit. Or stand. Just don't leave yet. I didn't like being told where not to go, but I also didn't like not knowing why I'd been brought here. My steps toward him were slow enough to be deliberate. The stool was cold through my coat. You took the card, the note. They weren't safe in your apartment. He said as if it was obvious. Safe from what? From anyone who opens drawers without asking. You mean you. I mean not just me. The music changed behind us, sliding into a slower rhythm, the kind that feels like it's measuring your heartbeat. He picked up the glass in front of him, held it to his mouth, but didn't drink. I don't like games, I said. This isn't a game. This is the middle of something. What something? That's for you to decide. I already did my part. His answers landed like dropped coins. Small weight, dull sound. I leaned forward. Why the pier? You went, he said, watching for a flicker in my face. Why send the woman? She wanted to see you. Who is she? He smiled faintly. Someone who knows endings. Try again, I said. I'm not in the habit of repeating myself. I wanted to push, but there was something in the way he held his gaze. Not defiance, but calculation. The bar's air smelled faintly of smoke and lemon peel, same as the matchbox in my pocket. The link was too neat to ignore. You can't just pull me into this without telling me what this is, I said. You walked in. That's consent, even if you pretend it's not. I almost laughed. That's not how consent works. Then think of it as curiosity, he said. You'll find that's even more dangerous. The clock above the bar ticked once, twice. He reached under the counter and slid something toward me. My thermos. Why bring it back now? Because tomorrow it won't matter. That's not an answer. It's the only one you'll get tonight. For a moment, we didn't speak. The saxophone in the background bent a note until it almost broke. He glanced toward the door behind me. Tomorrow, same time, different place. Somewhere that won't close the door on you. Where? You'll know when you see it. The bell above the entrance gave a single chime. I turned. The door was ajar, street lights spilling in. No one stood there. When I faced the bar again, Alex was gone. So was the thermos, the glass, the matchbox in my pocket. Only my stool was still warm. I left without rushing. The street outside was empty, the rain light enough to make the air smell metallic. My footsteps echoed against the closed shops, each one sounding less like my own. Halfway home, my phone buzzed. Unknown number, one step closer. At my apartment, the lock turned smoothly. The drawer in the kitchen was closed, but when I opened it, the card and the note were back inside. The pier sketch had a second X now, drawn in red ink. Same neat hand, same precision. I touched the mark. The ink was dry, but the paper felt warm. Sleep never came that night.
By morning, the red X had grown heavier in my mind than the whole card. It wasn't just a mark. It was an instruction, a push. I didn't want to follow it. I knew I would. The city outside was damp and half awake. I took my coffee to the window, watched the street for patterns. Same delivery van, same woman with the spotted umbrella, same dog pulling its owner toward the corner cafe. No Alex. No woman from the cafe. No one looking up at my window, which somehow felt worse. At 10, a message arrived. Unknown number. Today, noon, don't be early. No location, no name. I typed, where? The reply came 10 seconds later. A photo of a public square I knew well.
A place busy enough to hide in, open enough to make you feel exposed. The fountain at the center had been dry for years, but the stones still smelled faintly of water. At 11:55, I approached from the north side. People moved in slow loops, office workers with takeaway cups, tourists reading plaques, an old man selling postcards no one bought. The air tasted faintly of rain, though the sky was holding back. I stood near the fountain's edge, scanning faces. At 12:01, a voice behind me, "You cut it close." I turned. It wasn't Alex. It was the woman from the cafe, in a lighter coat now, hair pulled back. She held a small paper bag as if it were fragile. "You've been busy," I said, "and you've been watched. Here." She offered the bag. Inside, a single lemon, bright and heavy. I glanced at her. Cute? It's not for tea. Then for what? You'll know when it matters. The square's noise dimmed, like the city had decided to listen. She stepped closer. "He wants to meet again tonight. Different pier." I don't remember agreeing to another pier. You didn't. That's why he picked one. "Why the lemon?" I asked. She tilted her head. "Signal, just not the one you think." A child laughed somewhere behind us, chasing pigeons into flight. The sound felt too sharp for the air between us. "Are you working for him?" I asked. "Not exactly." "Then for who?" "For the ending," she said. Before I could push further, she walked away. Not hurried, not slow, just certain. By the time I decided to follow, she had blended into the square's rhythm and was gone. Back at my apartment, the lemon sat on the table next to the card. The second X on the pier sketch seemed darker now. I didn't remember it being so red. At 7:45, another message. "Bring the lemon." I didn't ask why. The pier was on the west side, busier than the last, lined with cafes and souvenir stalls. The air smelled of fried dough and salt. I kept the lemon in my bag, feeling its weight with every step. At the far end of the pier, leaning on the railing, was Alex. No coat, no smile, just watching the water. "You came," he said. "I keep saying that like it's a surprise." "Maybe it is." I handed him the lemon. He weighed it in his palm, then rolled it back to me. "Not for me." "Then for what?" "You'll find out before midnight." He nodded toward a bench halfway down the pier. "Sit there, wait 5 minutes. Someone will join you." "And if I don't?" "Then you'll still get your answer, but it won't be the one you want." The wind picked up, carrying the smell of rain over the water. I looked at the bench, then back at him. He was already walking away. I sat, counted minutes. At exactly 5, the woman from the cafe appeared again, holding 2 paper cups. She placed one in front of me. "What's in it?" I asked. "Not poison. That's expensive." I didn't drink. She smiled. "Midnight," she said. "By the blue door, and bring the lemon." She walked off before I could answer, disappearing into the lights of the pier. I looked at the cup, then at the lemon in my bag. The air around me felt like the pause before a match is struck. The blue door looked different at midnight. It held the night the way a secret holds a breath. I arrived at 11:57 and waited across the street, the lemon cold in my palm. The sign was unlit, a thin strip of light under the door like a promise. Maya texted, "Lemon." I sent a dot. She replied with 2. Our version of not panicking. At 12:01, the woman from the cafe appeared, coat open to the damp air. She didn't look at me. "Ready?" she asked. "For what?" "For not acting surprised." She knocked twice. The door clicked open an inch. Inside, the bar was candlelit, and empty in the way a room gets after it has told most of its stories. She pointed to the far end, a glass, and beside it, a small bowl. "For the lemon," she said. "You still haven't told me what it's for." "That's because you think objects have one meaning." I set the lemon in the bowl. She slid a folded paper across the counter. "Read it, quietly." It was a list of times and places. Trains, cafes, piers, the square with the dry fountain. All mine. Some his. One I didn't know. "You've been keeping score," I said. "We've been keeping a pattern," she corrected. "Patterns tell the truth people don't want to say." "Who is we?" She didn't answer. "You never say what you want," I said. "What I want is for you to choose while the choice is still yours." "Choose what?" "Which story to live in." "I don't live in other people's stories." "Everyone does. The trick is deciding whose edits you'll accept." A floorboard creaked. "Alex." He stayed in the shadows. "Don't," he told her. "Not like this." "Like what?" I asked. "Like a trap that thinks it's a favor." He stepped forward. "You can leave, Selene." "What if I stay?" "Then you'll hear a version that sounds better than the truth because it's shaped to your fears." "You're hearing that now," she countered. "Enough," I said. "One question each, then I decide." To Alex, "How did you know about the key under the loud plant?" I guessed. People hide things in noise. To her, "Why the lemon?" "It doesn't belong in the room. It shows who thinks in symbols and who thinks in surfaces. You put it in the bowl. He would have cut it." Alex exhaled. "If I'd cut it, she'd say I wanted control. If I left it, she'd say I'm sentimental. Her test always passes itself." "Truth always passes itself," she said. The candles hissed in a draft. I looked at the lemon and hated that it had an opinion about me. "Why me?" "Alex, because you don't rush endings." Her, "Because he doesn't like to be alone when he changes chapters." I pointed to the unfamiliar place on the list. "What's here?" "History," she said. "Context," Alex said. "They're the same thing with different lighting," I told them. I pocketed the list. The lemon stayed in its bowl, bright in the candlelight. "What if I don't show up there?" "Then the story picks you. Or it ends before you write any of it," Alex added. The door clicked once. The room felt smaller. "I'll go," I said, "but not because either of you told me to." "Good," she said. "Good," Alex echoed. Outside, the night was quiet in the way cities sound when they're thinking. I texted Maya, 3 dots. She sent back 2. Under a street lamp, I unfolded the list. The unfamiliar street had a time, 03:12. I checked the clock, 02:41. Not enough time to be brave. Enough to decide. I started walking. The unfamiliar street was quieter than it had any right to be. No bars still open, no taxis, no stray music leaking from windows, just rows of shuttered shops and lamps that hummed faintly in the cold air. I checked my phone, 03:09. 3 minutes to figure out why I was here. The address from the list wasn't marked, but halfway down the block stood a door that didn't match the others. Matte black, no handle, no visible lock. Its frame was chipped, as if it had been opened with something other than a key. I leaned against the wall across from it. The silence had weight, the kind you notice in your teeth. Somewhere in the distance, a truck downshifted. Then nothing. At exactly 03:12, a low click. The black door opened a fraction. Not enough to see in, just enough to prove it was listening. Alex stepped into the lamplight. "You made it," he said, like it was a test. "I knew you would." I replied. Not everyone follows an invitation they can't explain. The woman from the cafe emerged behind him, holding a thin folder. She asked to be here, Alex said. She earned it, the woman corrected. They both looked at me like I was the coin flip between them. What's inside? I asked, nodding at the folder. Your name, the woman said. And Anders. Places you've been, Alex added. Places you didn't notice you were being watched. She handed it over. The paper inside was thick, edges worn. My name at the top in precise, almost formal lettering. Below, dates, locations, times. A park bench at 1422. A train platform at 0703. The West Pier, the Blue Door, the square with the dry fountain. And one more, an entry marked for tomorrow, a place I'd never been. What is this? I asked. Proof, Alex said. Of what? That your story started long before we met. I closed the folder. Why show me now? Because you're about to choose something irreversible, the woman said. And you want me to pick your side, I replied. No, Alex said. We want you to pick at all. Most people don't. The air smelled faintly of metal and rain. Somewhere nearby, a shutter rattled in the wind. I realized I hadn't heard a single bird since I'd arrived. What's at tomorrow's location? I asked. An ending, the woman said. A beginning, Alex countered. Those aren't opposites, I told them. They feel like it, Alex said. The black door creaked wider. A warm, low light spilled out, touching the edge of my shoes. I could see the outline of stairs going down. Go in, the woman said. What's inside? The rest of the list, Alex said. And if I don't? Then the list ends here. For a moment, no one moved. The street seemed to lean closer, waiting. I thought about Maya, about the lemon left in the bowl, about the second red X on the pier sketch, about how many times I'd told myself I could walk away. My phone buzzed. Maya, 2 dots. Our way of saying, are you still you? I typed back, 3 dots. Her reply came fast. Don't forget which story is yours. I looked at the door, then at them. You're both too comfortable with me not knowing, I said. That's how it works, the woman said. That's how it starts, Alex corrected. I stepped forward. The warm light caught my coat, then my hands, then my face. I stopped just inside the frame. What if I go down there and don't come back up? Then, Alex said, someone else will tell the ending. The door closed behind me.
The air inside was warmer, but not in a way that comforted. It was the warmth of old wood, closed spaces, and lights that never see the sun. The stairs creaked under my weight, each step sounding like it might be the one to give way. At the bottom, the room opened into a narrow hall lined with shelves. Not books, files, hundreds of them, labeled in the same precise handwriting from the folder. The smell of paper and dust was heavy, almost sweet. Alex was already there, leaning against one of the shelves. The woman stood further back, flipping through a folder I couldn't see. Welcome to the archive. Of what? Of what's noticed, he replied. The woman closed her folder. Everything here is something someone thought was worth remembering. And me? I asked. You, she said, are in more than one. I followed her down the aisle. My name appeared on spines at random intervals, alongside dates I recognized and some I didn't. This is impossible, I said. That's what everyone says, Alex replied. Then what? Then they find the part they didn't know was theirs. At the end of the aisle was a single table with a single file. My name. Today's date. I didn't open it. What happens if I read this? You stop pretending you haven't been part of this for a long time, the woman said. And if I don't? Then you go back upstairs and it keeps going without you. The clock on the wall ticked, soft,
but deliberate. I sat, the chair colder than the air. Alex leaned on the table. Every file has edits. You can add, you can erase, but you can't leave it blank. Not for long. I thought of the lemon, the pear, the second red X, the way the list had known my steps before I took them. And if I change something? I asked. Then the story changes, Alex said. But it's still the same story, the woman added. Only if you think endings are fixed, Alex countered. I opened the file. Inside, a photograph of me at the train station, not from the day I met Alex, from years before. Same coat I'd worn tonight, same bag. In the background, blurred but unmistakable, was the woman. Impossible, I whispered. You keep saying that, she said. Beneath the photo was a single page, no paragraphs, no explanations, just a sentence. Tomorrow, 1945. The choice you've been preparing for. I looked at Alex. Is this your edit? He shook his head. We don't write these. Then who does? Silence. The woman slid a pen across the table. You can write one line, just one. It becomes part of the file. And if I don't? Then the file waits, but the story doesn't. The pen felt heavier than it should. My hand hovered above the page. I wanted to write something defiant, something that said I was the one deciding. Instead, I wrote without thinking. I will see it through. Alex smiled faintly. Then we'll see you tomorrow. The woman nodded, like we'd settled something neither of us understood. I stood, files still open behind me. What if I don't show up? Alex, then someone else tells it. The woman, and you'll never know which parts were yours. The stairs back up seemed longer. The blue door opened to the same quiet street, but the air felt sharper now, like it knew what I'd agreed to. I walked without looking back, the sentence I'd written echoing with each step. Not a promise, not yet, but close enough to feel like one. At home, the drawer with the card was open again. Inside, the peer sketch was gone. In its place was the photo from the file. Maya texted, "1 dot." I sent her nothing. Not yet. Outside, the city's lights flickered in the distance. Not like they were failing, but like they were trying to signal. And for the first time, I wondered if maybe they were.